Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. We got a lot of things to cover as this is a pretty massive part today. But before we get into that, Azalite, thank you very much for the support. And also, everyone, analytics are very important. So please take a look at these numbers right here and also the subscribe versus unsubscribe ratio. And do me a favor, drop a like and a comment to help fuel the algorithm. And if this is your first time on the channel, please don't forget to turn on notifications and subscribe so that way you'll never miss another upload. But with all that being said, let's get into what if Brock took the gym challenge, the finale, part 2. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's episode with Brock as he stands across from his first round opponent, Alistair, in the middle of the Winden Stadium battlefield. The two have said nothing since they were announced as the first round opponents. However, something about this encounter feels different to Brock. It's far less cordial than the last time they battled, and there seems to be a hint of malice in the air as Alistair stands across from him, not making any point of eye contact. However, this is not the point of focus for the story at this current time, as we shift the perspective to the VIP box that is high above in the rafters of Winden Stadium. It's the best seats in the house, as we follow up with Chairman Rose, as he has come to this place so that way he can conduct some business while he watches the rounds unfold. However, as the chairman sits down at his desk and begins to look over paperwork from today's proceedings, he is joined by none other than his assistant, Oleana, and one of the Galarian gym leaders, Opal, the fairy-type expert. Oleana hands the chairman a tablet with some reports on it, saying that they have the latest energy signatures from what was captured. Rose snatches the tablet from her hand as she begins to fill him in, saying that its energy output is far more than they expected, and if they don't do something quick, then they could have another incident like they've been having in recent weeks. Well then, I'm afraid that we're going to have to act fast, the chairman says. Go ahead and turn on the second part of the reactor. However, Oleana informs the chairman that she already has, and it's almost at full capacity. It can't hold much more energy. The amount that's being produced by this creature is something far beyond anything they would have thought it was capable of. While this seems pressing with the tone that Oleana is giving off, Chairman Rose appears unfazed, as if there isn't an overwhelming sense of impending danger. However, this is going to quickly change by Opal, as she begins to scold Rose for meddling in forces that he didn't understand. She told the chairman that beast needed to remain where it had slept, and now that it has been awakened, you put all of Galar in danger. But my dear Opal, that's why you are here, Chairman Rose says. I enlisted your talents for this whole situation. You were supposed to run damage control, you and your fairy-type Pokemon. Are you telling me you're going to be unable to hold up your end of the bargain? Rose says with a shifted tone in his voice, which causes Opal to flinch a bit. However, she reaffirms that she will do what she was asked. However, that doesn't still change the nature of the beast. Rose has tampered with something that he doesn't understand, and they are all at risk. So, the chairman had better be ready to accept the consequences if and when they happen. Now, while this sounds like a threat, Chairman Rose doesn't seem fazed by that, merely standing up, telling Opal that it's a shame so many of the Galarian gym leaders have become unable to perform their duties as of late. He would hate for her gym to befall the same fate, and her be forced into a retirement that she didn't need. So if there's anything else she would like to say, please go ahead and say it, and Rose will take it under advisement. However, the old lady merely clams up, not wanting to poke the Ursaluna any more than she already has. The fairy-type expert merely turns and walks to the door without saying another word. However, this does leave Oleana, stating that even though Opal was a bit coarse and brash with what she said, that doesn't change the fact that it isn't true. We are at maximum capacity with the amount of energy we're able to absorb from this thing, and if we don't figure out a solution to it now, then it may cause the reactor to go critical. However, Rose merely chuckles. Maybe that's the solution we need, he says, as we fade back down to the battlefield with Brock and Alistair, as the two have already begun the first battle of their Pokemon League Championship run, with Brock using his Stunky, while Alistair had chosen a ghost type known as Corsola. However, Unlike the last exchange that Brock had with the Ghost-type trainer, this time Stunky isn't doing as well, considering that the Dark-type is having trouble keeping up with this Corsola. It's demonstrated here when Corsola activates a move called Curse at the command of Alistair that immediately causes Stunky to glow in a demonic-type aura before it begins to writhe in pain. This, combined with the already negative mental space that Stunky has been in as of late, causes the damage that it takes from the curse to amplify tenfold. Brock tries to gain some ground with the Dark type, ordering it to use a bite. However, Corsola is unable to be hit by it, as it simply retaliates with a Strength Sap that lowers the attack of Stunky while gaining some health back in the process, basically making the assault a neutral damage. It's here that Brock sees something out of Stunky he was hoping that he would never would. The Dark type has lost motivation, merely just sitting down in the middle of the battlefield, unwilling to really do anything. Brock tries to give it a command to use a poison gas, but for some odd reason, even though it's now under the curse, it isn't even responding to that pain, as it just sits there and slowly lets its strength be sapped away, little by little, as Corsola uses a strength sap to again cut its attack and increase its own health, ending with Stunky being knocked out and Brock taking the first loss of this 6-on-6 battle in the championship rounds. Recalling his Dark type, Brock wonders what exactly is going on with it. For whatever reason, it seems to have fallen into some sort of depression as of late. However, he doesn't really have time to dwell on this, as the referee is calling for him to make his next choice. So whether he likes it or not, he's gonna have to face down this Ghost type, to which Alistair adds some commentary here, telling Brock that he was hoping he would have gotten stronger since their last battle. After all, he kinda held back because he was afraid Brock wouldn't be able to win. This revelation kinda rubs Brock the wrong way. What do you mean held back? I could have beat you. I did beat you. Yeah, that's true, Alistair says, but we didn't really go all out. I was enjoying the time that we spent so much together that I wanted to give you a gift of sorts, so I just kinda let you win our battle. This revelation kinda sets Brock on a tailspin as he begins to doubt himself slightly. What do you mean, let me win our battle? He says. That was won fair and square. However, Alistair retorts that he didn't go all out. After all, he didn't even invoke his ace or its Gigantamax form, so there's no way Brock actually got a taste of what Alistair is truly capable of. And then Alistair follows up with something that Brock hadn't really paid attention to in their first encounter. Alistair is a child prodigy. He is very adept at Pokemon battles, especially with the Ghost type, and there's a reason why he was chosen to be a Galarian gym leader so young. Chairman Rose sees great potential in him, and even hopes for Alistair to take the reins of a champion one day. So, if Brock hopes to follow that up, he's gonna have to do a lot better than what he just did with Stunky. The Pewter City native isn't gonna take this sitting down, telling Alistair that no matter how their last battle ended, and the circumstances behind it, he knows that he and his Pokemon have gotten stronger. So, he fully intends to take this win, as he readies his next Pokeball, declaring, Galvantula, your time to battle. The electric spider pops to the field, discharging a bit of electricity, letting everybody know that it's ready to engage in whatever conflict that may come its way. While Alistair acknowledges that this Pokemon is a bit more confident than the previous one, he still feels confident in his Pokemon's ability to take the win here. So he chooses to go with Corsola one more time, as the start of the second battle is called, and Brock immediately gives a call for a discharge. However, this is going to be interrupted when Corsola uses an ancient power to block the electricity's path, preventing any serious damage to itself at the command of its trainer. Then, almost like clockwork, Alistair goes on the attack again, calling for another curse from Corsola, which again manages to snag Galvantula, as it is unable to outpace the move, and it begins to writhe in pain as a demonic energy envelops it. Now knowing what Alistair's strategy is, having seen it when he battled Stunky, Brock has an idea of how he might be able to beat this thing, but he's going to need Corsola's help in order to do it. So he orders Galvantula to use a discharge once more. However, this is again met with another ancient power from Alistair. However, this time it's not used as a defensive barrier, but as projectiles, as they are sent in the air, catching bits of the electricity, preventing it from actually hitting Corsola for major damage while it goes to slam down on top of the bug type. However, this is where Brock decides to pivot his strategy a little bit, as he orders Galvantula to turn its discharge into Electro Whip and catch the boulders as they come crashing down. This is surprisingly effective, turning them into somewhat of a slingshot, as Galvantula uses its momentum and body weight to shift shift the boulders in the direction back towards Corsola, allowing them to slam back into the ghost type, causing a bit of damage that was increased by the momentum of the boulders, and having a nasty side effect as the electro web that was wrapped around them causes a paralysis on the ghost type. Now moving much slower than it was before, Corsola is unable to get out of the way of Brock's next attack, as Galvantula throws caution to the wind while it leaps into the air, immediately landing on the top of it so it can sink its fangs inside of the ghost type, using Giga Drain to siphon off some of the life force of it, so that way the bug can replenish some of its own health that it lost. Alistair immediately tries to retaliate by calling for a hex, however the paralysis has kicked in and Corsola is unable to move as Galvantula completes its life-draining efforts before jumping off, leaving the ghost type somewhat of a husk in itself. This is where Alistair decides that he needs to pivot his strategy, recalling Corsola for now. However, Brock's not going to have to wait long to figure out exactly what his next choice is, as it's kind of an obvious one, as Alistair declares, "Runerigus, your time to battle." As the ghost-type trainer throws the ball, a giant stone slab pops from it before slamming down on the ground with a giant thud. This leaves Brock a bit confused. He's never seen a Pokemon like this. Is he even sure that this is a Pokemon? However, Alistair reassures Brock that it is, as bits of the face of it begin to crack and the stone slab begins to separate, with ethereal tentacles connected to each piece as it slowly pushes itself up, revealing its true form. Just you wait, Brock. You're gonna see exactly how devastating my Pokemon can be, Alistair thinks to himself, as the next round is called and Brock gives his first command, telling Galvantula to use a discharge. However, Alistair does nothing, merely letting his ghost type take the attack, and this is when Brock finds out just how foolish his mistake was, as Runerigus just takes the damage, or what he thinks is damage, only to reveal that the electric type attack didn't affect it whatsoever, leaving both Brock and Galvantula a bit surprised. They're unsure of what just happened here. However, Alistair is quick to elaborate, as he orders Runerigus in with a Shadow Claw. Suddenly, the stone slab demonstrates a speed that Brock didn't think it was capable of as it tears down the battlefield before slashing at Galvantula with ethereal energy that strikes the bug for some serious damage. You see, Brock, my ghost type also bears the second typing of a ground type, so your electricity won't really have any effect on it. I hope your strategy wasn't planning to use Galvantula and ride it to a wind, because if it is, then I'm sorry to say, you're in for a rude awakening. However, Brock decides it's time to pull a page from Alistair's book, as he recalls Galvantula, and he readies another Pokeball, something that Alistair hasn't had a chance to see, and he may not have a direct counter for, as he declares, "Gyarados, your time to battle." As the familial serpent emerges from its Pokeball, Brock thinks to himself, this is exactly what he needs to shift the momentum in his favor, as Alistair contemplates his next move. But for whatever reason, he decides that Runerigus is the way to go, as the next battle is called to start, and Brock immediately goes on the attack, ordering Gyarados to use an Aqua Tail. Slithering down the battlefield, the water type charges its tail, preparing to slam into Runerigus, only for Alistair to call for a move that Brock wasn't expecting to come, a Protect. This is going to prevent any damage whatsoever, and put Runerigus in a favorable position, as after the Protect fades, it launches a Shadow Claw at the command of Alistair that connects with the serpent right across its belly, again landing for a massive amount of damage. However, Brock secretly knew that there might be something more to this after Alistair decided not to change a ground type to face off a water type, and he wanted Gyarados as close as possible, as he commands his serpent to fire off with a Dragon Pulse. Looking up as Runerigus drags its claws across the belly of Gyarados, you can see the beam of Dragonic energy firing from the mouth of the serpent, only to envelop the ghost type at point blank range. While the damage it took was excessive, this wasn't enough to end Runerigus, as Gyarados retreats back to its side of the battlefield to recuperate from the damage that it just took. This leaves Alistair in a precarious position. He could continue this battle in an attempt to take out or at least wear down Gyarados. However, he feels like that might be an exercise in futility, so he decides that he may have a better option on his belt, as he recalls the ghost ground type for the time being. Holding a Pokeball in his hand, Alistair tells them that they're in a precarious position. Both of them have displayed 3 of their Pokemon, and they seem to be equal. However, Brock is down a team member, so Alistair feels like he still has a comfortable lead, and he aims to keep it, as he declares his next choice. Shedinja, go! The levitating husk emerges from its Pokeball, staring down Brock with the blank look on its face. However, the boy doesn't seem to be intimidating. This is the least intimidating of the 3 Pokemon that Alistair has shown to date. However, what Brock doesn't know is this Pokemon has far more capabilities than any of the Pokemon that Alistair has used, and he's going to find out firsthand when Shedinja uses a move called Shadow Sneak, to which Brock counters by using a Dragon Dance. He figures that if Gyarados can just raise its basic attack, then he'll be able to one-shot this bug by squishing it with an Aqua Tail. So, as the Dragon Dance is completed and the Shadow Sneak connects, Brock follows up with his exact plan, ordering an Aqua Tail that is successful in hitting Shedinja. However, it appears that it didn't have any effect whatsoever. This just causes Alistair to laugh behind his porcelain mask, stating that Brock really doesn't have any idea what he's doing when it comes to Ghost-type Pokemon, does he? Confused, Brock asks what he means. That should have been enough to take out Shedinja. However, Alistair simply replies, "Oh, it never will be," as he orders the bug type to use a Will-O-Wisp. Suddenly, Gyarados is met with that immediately cuts the attack that Brock had just gained with the Dragon Dance. But the boy isn't going to let that stop him, as he orders Gyarados to use a Bulldoze. However, once again, as the Serpent tears down the battlefield to connect with Shedinja, it is unable to close out the deal, failing to cause any damage to it. Then the burn begins to take effect as it saps a little bit more of Gyarados' strength. Brock is confused. He doesn't understand what is going on. However, Alistair, being the ever so helpful friend that he is, decides to let Brock in on the ruse. Shedinja has a very special ability. While it's not very strong as far as stats are concerned, its ability more than makes up for it. It's known as Wonder Guard, so it will only take damage when the move is super effective, or if it's hit by a status condition or some sort of weather that could cause damage to it. So, like it or not, no matter how much power your Serpent has, your Gyarados won't be able to take out my Shedinja. Realizing that he is fighting a losing battle and Gyarados is losing health with every passing second, Brock decides it's time to recall the Serpent for the time being in order to preserve whatever attack power and health that it has left. Now comes the problem that he is faced with. Which Pokemon does he go with? He needs something that can be super effective against this thing. While Brock does have options, the fact of the matter is, none of them seem good, because no matter what he tries, Alistair seems to be one step ahead of him, and every time he thinks he's gaining momentum, it just so happens to be a false sense of security, and Alistair quickly shifts it back in his favor. But like it or not, Brock needs a win here, and he's willing to go all out in order to get it. So without hesitation, he pulls out the Pokeball of his starter, as he declares, "Colossal, your time to battle." The monolith emerges from its Pokeball with a ground-shaking thud as it faces off against Shedinja. While this Pokemon would be more than able to take out Shedinja, Alistair doesn't seem fazed by it, as if he has some sort of plan to combat the rock type. With the call of the next match to begin, Brock immediately fires off with an ancient power. However, Alistair has a counter for this, as he commands Shedinja to use a Metal Claw to break the boulders as they fire down the battlefield towards it. This allows the speedy bug to get in the personal space of Colossal, as at the command of Alistair, it uses a Giga Drain to begin stealing some of the health from it. While this won't have any effect in healing Shedinja, it will get Colossal that much closer to being able to be knocked out. However, Brock wanted Shedinja close, as he tells Colossal to use a Flame Charge. The rock type then envelops itself inside of a ball of flames that prevent the Giga Drain from causing any serious damage, as it throws its full body weight at Shedinja, and unfortunately, it's not fast enough to get out of the way, as the massive weight of the rock type comes crashing down on it with fire all around. This is enough to finally give Brock a win, as when Colossal stands up, Shedinja is unable to move, as it was finally hit with that super effective technique. Finally, Brock says, "A win. Colossal, I knew you could do it." To which the rock type merely flexes its arms, demonstrating that it's ready for any type of battle that is thrown its way. However, Alistair isn't going to wait that long to show Brock exactly what his next choice is going to be, as he declares, "Runerigus, go!" Realizing that he may need to save Colossal for later, Brock decides to recall the fire rock type for the time being. However, this leaves the boy in quite the predicament. He only has 2 choices left that he hasn't battled with yet, and he also has 2 other choices that have maintained some sort of damage, and one of them has even been burned. Like it or not, he's gonna have to go with someone fresh here if he hopes to have any chance at swinging things in his favor. So, reluctantly, he decides that he's gonna choose the more volatile of his team members, as he declares, "Thwacky, your time to battle. The grass simian emerges from its Pokeball, thudding its 2 sticks on the ground violently, showing that it has an aggression that won't be matched by anyone. And this exact demonstration causes Brock to think to himself he hopes that Thwacky doesn't get out of control here, as the command for the next battle to start is given and both trainers order their Pokemon in. For Alistair, it's simple. He orders a Shadow Claw from Runerigus, as it's been quite effective in causing severe damage to Brock's other Pokemon. However, Thwacky is not Brock's other Pokemon, and in its agitated state, it's able to easily dodge the move, as Runerigus is moving a little bit slower from its earlier battles. This allows the grass type to dodge underneath one of the massive stone face plates that it was about to be hit with before firing off a Razor Leaf that is completely unguarded right into the center mass of Runerigus. Because this was so close, this was successful in a critical hit. However, it's not quite enough to take out the giant stone monolith, and Alistair aims to use this as he commands for a brutal swing in an attempt to try and follow up by having Runerigus extend out all of its stone limbs in an attempt to smack Thwacky. However, this isn't going to go too well for the ghost type, as the monkey is able to use these to his advantage, kind of like tree branches swinging from one to another, before landing a knockoff at the command of Brock, finally bringing the battle to an end and giving Brock his second win. This was a bit of shock to Alistair. He wasn't thinking that Thwacky would be able to shift things in Brock's favor. However, its sporadic movements and its high agitation are exactly what Brock needed to get things moving in his favor. As the Ghost-type trainer recalls his Pokemon, he considers his next options. However, the one that he has is going to be a little bit odd, but he thinks that it's going to be exactly what he needs, as he declares, Mimikyu, go! As this oddly dressed Pokemon emerges from its Pokeball, Brock can't help think to himself, is that a Pikachu? However, Alistair simply chuckles. Everyone thinks that, he says, to which Brock demands to know how Alistair knew what he was thinking. But the boy simply replies, everyone thinks it. And no, that is not a Pikachu. It's something far more dangerous, as the eyes of the balloon-clad Pokemon begin to glow with a sinister aura. However, Brock isn't willing to back down from this thing, and Thwacky isn't either, as its agitation has begun to skyrocket, and if Brock were to try and recall it now, it may cause a problem with the grass type. So he decides to leave it in, as the command to start this battle is given, and Brock orders it in with a knockoff. However, Alistair just lets this come, but unfortunately for Thwacky, the knockoff isn't going to have any effect, as Mimikyu merely takes the attack before executing a move called Hone Claws that allows it to glow in an aura, signifying that it got some sort of stat increase. Wait, Thwacky is a lot stronger than that. How come that thing didn't even flinch, Brock thinks to himself. However, he's going to find out quickly, as the balloon disguise of Mimikyu begins to hang limp a little bit across its body. That is Mimikyu's disguise, Alistair says. Anytime it takes damage, the first damage of a battle, the disguise kicks in, preventing any damage at all, although it is at the cost of the balloon of Mimikyu, causing the ghost type to begin to weep a little bit underneath the balloon. However, it is able to quickly retaliate, getting revenge for what Thwacky did, as it is able to land a slash attack that is able to hit for some serious damage due to the increase to its stats from Hone Claws. This causes Thwacky to slide back as it holds its belly while it flinches in pain from the sheer power that it was hit with. This causes Brock to rethink his strategy a bit, contemplating that maybe he should recall Thwacky. However, the grass type isn't going to have this, as it's beginning to get all fired up, seeing red in the process. As Brock contemplates his next move, he is unable to give any order before Thwacky is tearing down the battlefield in an attempt to land a double hit on Mimikyu. But unfortunately, because this is a normal type, he's not going to be able to cause any damage to the ghost type, and it is able to quickly use a Shadow Sneak to evade the attack before landing another slash on Thwacky. However, this time it's from behind, causing the simian to grow even more agitated and lash out with a branch poke in an attempt to try and slam its 2 sticks into Mimikyu. While the ghost type does get hit, the damage is minimal, as Alistair was able to quickly think on his feet, and he ordered Mimikyu to use a slash to deflect one of the tree branches before they connected with it. It's here we see Brock telling Thwacky to calm down. It needs to come back to its senses, but unfortunately, the grass type has lost all feeling to itself, and as Brock makes an attempt to recall it, the beam of energy is deflected by one of the sticks, as Alistair gives a command for another slash attack that Mimikyu is able to easily execute before sliding its claws right across the belly of Thwacky, finally bringing this battle to an end and knocking the grass type out in the process. Recalling the starter, Brock just looks at the Pokeball. What am I going to have to do to get through to you, he says to himself. However, However, he's going to have to worry about that later. This Mimikyu is a demonic force sent from the underworld, and Brock doesn't know exactly what he has that could deal with it. All of his Pokemon but one have battled, and the one that haven't, well, he hasn't really had any battles with it, which is the mistake the boy had made. He should have gotten some training in with it at the Isle of Armor. But unfortunately, like it or not, he can't change the past, and he's hoping a little bit of good luck will be on his side, as he declares, "Berserker, your time to battle." The Hobocat emerges from the field with a distinct odor to itself, kind of like a wet animal has been living in a trash can, to which Alistair mentions as he begins to gag behind his mask, while Joe in the stands seconds this motion, as he can smell Berserker from here. However, this is the least of Brock's concerns, as he's hoping that the Steel type will have exactly what he needs to take out Mimikyu due to its specific typing. With a call to start the next battle, Alistair chooses not to recall his Ghost type, as he feels that the other choices on his team would be just as ineffective against Berserker as Mimikyu is. So he does his best to stave off any attacks by calling for a Baby Doll Eyes in an attempt to lower any type of assault that Berserker may have. However, the Steel type merely fires off an Iron Head, slamming its forehead into Mimikyu's, and because it doesn't have its disguise up, the Hobocat is able to use its stench and the force of its attack to cause Mimikyu to flinch before it's able to fire off the Baby Doll Eyes. And this allows Brock to retaliate once again with another Iron Head that's able to quickly drive Mimikyu into the ground and bring its tenure in this battle to an end. As Alistair recalls Mimikyu, he finds himself in an odd position. He had maintained control over this battle for the entire duration of it, and now Brock has slowly begun to change things into his favor. This leaves the Ghost type expert with much to contemplate as we shift perspective to the VIP box above the stadium, where Chairman Rose currently sits with none other than Giselle. They are talking about their deal. She is going to eliminate Brock and humiliate him in front of everyone. The chairman wants a message sent to everyone. Anyone who dare devalue the organization that he built with his own two hands will suffer the consequences. Macros Cosmos will not allow such insolence. Giselle tells him not to worry, she will hold up her end of the bargain. But what is he going to do about his brother? After all, she can deal with any one of these in the tournament, other than Peony. Rose says not to worry, he will deal with him before Giselle has to face him, as long as she holds up her end of the bargain. As the two look out the window with a sinister smile on their faces, as we pan back to the battle. Although at the current time, Alistair is down behind Brock and Pokemon, he still stands by his previous statements that Brock wasn't able to beat him. So he aims to keep that prediction true, as he readies his next Pokeball, declaring, "Jellicent, go!" The ghastly water type emerges from its Pokeball as it levitates across the battlefield, ready to engage in any type of battles that may come its way. With the wave to start the next round, Brock chooses to keep Berserker in, as it's his freshest Pokemon, and he also takes the first move by ordering Berserker to use an Iron Head. However, Jellicent is going to be quick to counter this, as Alistair wastes no time in calling for an Acid Armor to raise the defense of his Ghost type. While the Iron Head is a powerful move, the fact that Acid Armor was invoked here makes Jellicent's defense, and Hobocat is unable to really penetrate its defenses to cause any serious damage, with its head merely ricocheting off of the carcass of the jellyfish, causing it to get a bit dazed in the process. This leaves a brief opening for Alistair to take advantage of, as he orders Jellicent to use a Scold. Suddenly, the smelly feline is engulfed with boiling hot water that is more than it's ever had to handle before. While this isn't a fire-type move, the heat does have some sort of effect on the steel coating of Berserker, causing it to flinch in pain ever so slightly. However, this does have a very unpleasant side effect for Berserker, as its once brisk musk is now a potent stench that washes across the battlefield, and it's enough to even reach the VIP section with Rose and Giselle, as they begin to cover their noses at the foul odor. However, this is the least of the problems, as this has triggered something in Berserker. It doesn't like water, just like most felines, and the fact that it just got introduced to something that's going to wash away its natural musk is going to send the feline into a state that Brock hasn't really seen it before, as it goes from being the normal, lazy, laid-back cat to almost feral, as it begins to try to attack Jellicent by using an Iron Iron Head, once again trying to break through its defenses. Now, while Jellicent does have a massive defense, Iron Head's side effect of a flinch is going to come into play here, as when the Hobocat slams its head into Jellicent once again, it's going to cause it to flinch. However, the Steel type is going to be stopped by Brock, as it calls its name, causing it to snap out of its feral state before looking around a bit confused, as both Jellicent and Alistair are staring it down, confused about the situation just happened as well. However, this state of confusion isn't going to be allowed to last long, as the ref orders them to continue. Any more outbursts like that, and Brock will get himself disqualified, to which the boy simply sighs, as Pokemon are becoming a little bit wild, and it's not something he's too happy with. However, that's not something he can worry about now, as Alistair is back on the attack with Jellicent. However, this time, it's not an actual attack. He instead wants to prolong the battle, as he orders recover from Jellicent. This allows the fish to glow in an ethereal aura as it replenishes some of its lost health, much to both Brock and Berserker's chagrin. However, they're not going to have a whole lot of time to react here, as the only thing Brock can do is to try and counteract both the health gain and the defense increase that they've gotten during this battle, by calling for a move that Berserker has that one of Alistair's Pokemon used earlier in the battle, a Hone Claws. So, as the Steel type bares its claws, it begins scratching them across the battlefield in an attempt to sharpen them and possibly intimidates Jellicent. However, it doesn't work, as the Ghost type and its trainer have remained unflinching, as the next command is given in a Nightshade in an attempt to cause some massive damage to Berserker. However, Brock knows the only way that they're going to have to get out of this is to go straight through it, so he orders Hobocat to use another Iron Head, to which the Steel type happily obliges as it plows through the ghostly energy, taking whatever damage is dealt to it before slamming into Jellicent one more time. However, unfortunately for both Brock and Berserker, this isn't enough to end it, as Berserker is beginning to breathe a little bit heavy from all the damage that it's taken, and unfortunately it's going to be on the receiving end of another Nightshade, as Alistair doesn't want to trigger one of those freakouts that the Steel Cat had before. However, Brock has a thought to himself that may be exactly what he wants, as for some reason there's a very odd move that this Steel type knows that it shouldn't really, because it doesn't have any synergy with anything else that it has in its moveset. However, Brock gives a command for a rain dance. Suddenly, Berserker begins to dance in a very silly way, kinda like it's pandering for money or food, as it begins to summon rain clouds above it, and this triggers the feral state of the cat once again, as water slowly begins to rain down across the battlefield. An intense growl echoes throughout the entire chamber as Berserker tears down the battlefield with the command of Brock to use another Iron Head, and unfortunately for Alistair, he's going to have no choice but to use another Skull in order to counterattack. Luckily, Jellicent is still full of vitality, and it's able to move just a bit faster than Berserker is, as it fires the Scold, drenching the Steel type with boiling hot water before driving it into the stadium barrier and leaving it unconscious, bringing this battle to an end. Brock recalls Berserker, thanking it for the battle and apologizing for sending it into that feral state, as it may have lost control, and that could have been the reason why they lost the battle overall. But that's not something that the boy can think about for the time being, as Alistair compliments Brock on his ability to call out some pretty weird attributes in his Pokemon. That's what he's been able to demonstrate throughout this entire battle. However, weird isn't going to be enough to trump the Ghost type trainer, so Brock is going to have to do better. However, Brock readies a Pokeball, as he knows that he has better. Galvantula, your time to battle. As the electric bug pops from the ball, it discharges a bit of electricity, as the rain is still showering down from above. This is exactly what Brock had in mind. Even though Berserker went feral and it may have lost that battle, it still set up Galvantula in an advantageous position, which Alistair finally clues in on, as the commands for the battle are given to start, and both trainers give their next orders, with Jellicent using a Nightshade, while Galvantula wastes no time in using a Discharge. Unfortunately for the jellyfish, this is going to come at a great cost, as with the rain up, the Discharge now finds the potency of what could be a Thunder attack, as it tears across the battlefield, spiking from raindrop to raindrop, and connecting with the Ghost type for super effective damage. And unfortunately, that Acid Armor only increased its physical defense, so this amplified special offensive attack is going to cause some serious damage. But unfortunately for both Brock and Galvantula, with Recover on his side, Jellicent is able to get back most of that health that it just lost at the command of Alistair. However, Brock is not going to let up here, as there was another reason why he chose his spider, as he orders Galvantula Galvantula to tear down the battlefield and connect with its fangs once again to begin draining the life from Jellicent with the Giga Drain. Just as the arachnid sinks its teeth into the jellyfish, Alistair commands another Scald in an attempt to break the lock. However, Galvantula is persistent, and even though it's been battling long, the fact that it's been able to recover a massive amount of life from this is exactly what it needs to hold on for the long haul, as Jellicent begins to flail about, unable to break the hold that the spider has on it, and Alistair can do nothing but watch as the health is slowly drained from the jellyfish as its levitation becomes less and less as it slowly falls to the ground. As Galvantula finally breaks contact at the command of Brock, it's revealed that Jellicent is unable to battle, once again bringing Brock in the lead. As the Ghost-type trainer recalls his Pokemon, Alistair thinks about everything that just happened. Even though he told Brock that he feels like he was going to be unable to beat him, the boy's will seems to be pushing through here, unwilling to accept defeat by any means necessary. It's a sense that he never felt from him before. That boy, the one that was willing to help him at any cost, seems to no longer be there. No, it is still there. However, it's masked by someone who enjoys the competition of battle, someone Alistair didn't actually get a chance to experience the last time they battled. This has the boy fired up. He is ready to actually turn on the heat. He's ready to finally take Brock seriously as a challenger, as he holds his next Pokeball in his hand, declaring, "Corsola, go!" As Alistair's first choice for this battle takes back to the field, it readies itself for a long haul, as it knows there's a lot of ground that it's going to have to make up. And as the commands are given, Brock immediately tries to take advantage of the rain right before it fades by ordering a discharge. However, Alistair is able to counter this quite effectively, calling for an ancient power to raise the barrier once again and absorbing the electricity, preventing any damage to his ghost type. Then, as the rain fades, Brock tries to go on the attack once again, ordering an electro web to try and bind the ghost type. However, Corsola is going to be able to easily outmaneuver this by using another ancient power from the command of its trainer, and this time it's not going to end in Brock's favor, as the electro web was heading in the direction of the ghost type, so the ancient power is once again able to defend from Galvantula's assault as Corsola slinks throughout the battlefield before being able to land a hex on the spider, causing a decent amount of damage. However, this puts it right in the striking range as Brock calls for another Giga Drain, but unfortunately this is what Alistair was looking for, as he orders another strength sap, so that way he can gain some health back to his Corsola. And unfortunately this becomes a tug of war on whose will is stronger, but unfortunately Galvantula seems to be slipping here a little bit, as Corsola is able to break the hold and then fire off with another ancient power, to which the arachnid is unable to dodge, finally being squished by some of the boulders. Luckily, this wasn't enough to take it out, as Galvantula is able to quickly get to its feet. This is where Alistair recalls Corsola, slightly tilting Brock as he wasn't expecting him to call it. He thought he was going to try and save this ace of his till the last moment. However, the ghost-type gym leader does not want to hold back any longer, as he declares, "Gengar, go!" The king of the ghost-types pops from his Pokeball with a cackle of its name before fading into the shadows, making Galvantula unable to detect its presence. Alistair immediately goes on the attack with the call of this next start of the round by ordering something that is going to cause Brock an unwanted headache, as Gengar emerges from the shadows and envelops the bug with a hypnosis, immediately putting it to sleep. Brock immediately begins to panic as he calls to Galvantula for it to get up, but unfortunately the prolonged battles that Galvantula has been through makes it unable to heed the call of its trainer, as Gengar is able to strike it with the Venom Shock, finally bringing the bug's tenure in this battle to an end, bringing them down to 2 Pokemon each. Recalling the bug type, Brock begins to contemplate his choices. He has Gyarados and Colossal left, and he knows that both of them have battled, to where this Gengar is still relatively fresh. He needs to turn on the pressure, and he knows that even though it does have a burn, Gyarados will be his best option. So, readying the Pokeball of his mother's ace, Brock sends the Serpent back in, as it roars with a flinch from the burn that it had taken on earlier in the battle. However, its stubbornness is going to push right through as it stares down Gengar, ready to take on the Ghost type with all the power it has left in its body. But unfortunately, as the match is called to start and Brock calls for a Dragon Pulse, Gengar is going to prove to be just a little bit faster than Gyarados, as it's able to easily outmaneuver the Dragon Pulse and land a move that's going to be more devastating than Brock had originally thought it would be, as a Hex envelops Gyarados, and unfortunately for the Serpent, it's going to be ravaged in ghostly aura and pain, as the Hex takes full advantage of the status condition it has, dealing double damage to the Serpent, knocking it out in one blow, and quickly shifting momentum in the favor of Alistair. Brock can't believe it. Just like that, he's down 2 Pokemon because of this Gengar. It really is Alistair's ace, and he's been unable to cause any damage to it whatsoever. As he recalls Gyarados, Brock thanks it for all of the effort that it put in this battle. He readies the Pokeball of his final Pokemon, his starter, the one that's been with him since the beginning, since he got here to Galar, as he declares, "Colossal, your time to battle." Stone Monolith emerges from its Pokeball with a giant thud to face down Gengar. However, Brock knows that this battle is going to be one for the record books, as the wave of the flags are given for them to begin this next altercation. Alistair holds nothing back, immediately going on the attack with the Hypnosis from his Gengar, but Brock has a counter for this, as he orders Colossal to use a Rapid Spin to deflect the Hypnosis effect. This proves to be rather useful, as while the Rapid Spin doesn't affect Ghost types, it does prevent Colossal from being put to sleep by Gengar and shifting the Rock type into a favorable position, as Colossal begins to fire off a Tar Shot at the command of Brock, while Gengar was trying to avoid it by fading back into the shadows. But unfortunately, even though it is a shadow and gas-based Pokemon, the Tar Shot has securely mounted the Ghost type to the battlefield, and it's here that Brock thinks he has the advantage, as he orders Colossal to use a Flame Charge in an attempt to one-shot Gengar, now that it's covered in the flammable goo. However, Alistair isn't going to let this happen, as the Dynamax band on his wrist begins to glow, and he recalls Gengar before sending it back out in its G-Max form. What emerges is the Stuff of Nightmares, as Gengar's overwhelming body is enough to swallow half of the battlefield, while Colossal continues its flame charge down, smacking into the giant Spectre. While this does cause a little bit of damage, it doesn't really do much, as Gengar barely felt it, but luckily Colossal was able to gain the much needed speed boost it will need in order to keep up with Gengar's massive speed. However, this is going to be put to the test immediately, as Alistair goes on the attack, calling for a Max Ooze in an attempt to stop Colossal dead in his tracks. However, Brock isn't going to waste any time encountering this, calling for another Tar Shot that's able to counter the G-Max move and prevent any real damage to himself. That was lucky, Brock thinks to himself. He's got to figure out a way to bring this Gengar down. However, like it or not, there's only going to be one real way Brock can do this, as he activates the Dynamax band on his wrist before invoking the power of G-Max Evolution and sending Colossal back out to the battlefield to face Gengar in a battle of titans. But fortunately for Brock, his Colossal has an advantage here, as with its increased stats from the G-Max transformation and the stat buff that it had gotten from the Flame Charge, it's able to outmaneuver Gengar, as Alistair calls for another Max Ooze, to which the Fire type is able to quickly counter when Brock goes all in, calling for its G-Max move, a G-Max Volcalith. The Tornado of Rocks proves to be too much for the Poison type move, as it tears through it and strikes Gengar with the full force of a falling mountain. However, Alistair is not going to let this discretion go unanswered, as he orders Gengar to stop playing around. It's time for them to use its ultimate technique in G-Max Terror. Suddenly, as Colossal tries to move out of the way, Gengar steps on the shadow of the monolith, preventing it from moving before slamming it with as much Ghost type energy that the Spectre can muster. But unfortunately, just like the Volcalith, it's not enough to take out Colossal, and the two Kaiju-sized Pokemon stand at a stalemate. However, there is one thing that Brock has going for it, as Gengar is beginning to show the effects of its transformation. It's beginning to move slower, and that's a sign that it's going to start wearing off soon, which means the boy has an advantage here. But he needs to use it now, as he calls for a Max Flare. As Colossal begins to envelop the entire stadium in a fire tornado, Gengar reduces in size as its G-Max transformation wears off, much to Alistair's surprise, thinking to himself that was a turn too early. But unfortunately, Gengar is unable to dodge the massive fire attack that's inbound on it, as the Max Flare envelops the Ghost type, scorching it from all points as it's unable to find a shadow to hide in. As the flare begins to subside, it reveals a very crispy Ghost type as it is smoldering. Yet, Gengar is still able to battle, as it is unwilling to go down that easy. But unfortunately, now for Brock, his transformation has worn off, as Colossal reduces in size once again. This leaves the two in another stalemate, as Gengar is having trouble levitating across the battlefield, but it's not going to give up. While Colossal had dumped all the energy that it had inside of it into that last attack. This is going to come down to which Pokemon and trainer has the will to go on and the stubbornness to push through. However, Alistair isn't going to let Brock get this win, as he orders Gengar to use another Hypnosis, to which Brock invokes another Rapid Spin in an attempt to dodge it, to which is successful for the boy. However, this is going to cause another turn of events, as Colossal, due to being tired, is a bit more wobbly, and Brock aims to use this to his advantage, as while the Rock type is spinning and Gengar is trying to figure out its next point of attack with the Venom Shock, Brock tells it to let loose an ancient power that the Rock type uses as momentum, firing it off, increasing its spin. This forces Colossal to begin to spin like a top, as Gengar is unable to get close without causing damage to itself. But unfortunately for the Ghost type and Alistair, it's too late before they realize what Brock was trying to do, as Colossal aims to use its entire body as a weapon, as before they know it, it slams itself into Gengar, driving the Ghost type into the barrier of the battle stadium with Colossal's full weight behind it. This is enough to end the battle, as Alistair's ace drops to the field with spirals in its eyes. As Colossal picks itself back up, Brock can tell that it's breathing heavily, but unfortunately, they still have one more Pokemon to go, as Alistair recalls Gengar, thanking it for all of the effort that it put in. Then he looks to both Brock and Colossal, as while they both look tired, they have a fire in their eyes, like they're unwilling to take no for an answer. They will not be denied this victory at any cost. However, Alistair will not be denied either, as he declares Corsola, go. The first Pokemon that Alistair chose in this battle takes its position back on the field as it readies itself for a next altercation. However, just like the battle with Gengar, this is going to come down to who has the most will, as both Pokemon are tired, barely able to keep themselves afloat. But unfortunately for Corsola, Colossal has the advantage here, as with the Flame Charge, its speed is still faster than the Ghost type, and Brock uses this to his advantage, calling for a Tar Shot in an attempt to lock the Ghost type in place so that way it can't use its Strength stat in an attempt to increase its health. This is successful on Brock's end, as Alistair does what he can to try and break the effects of the Tar Shot by calling for an Ancient Power, but unfortunately Corsola just doesn't have the strength to push through, as Colossal uses this one final attempt at firing off a Flame Charge before tearing down the battlefield and connecting with Corsola, while using the Tar Shot's flammability to amplify the power of this fire type base move and bringing this battle to a close as it slams into Corsola and knocks it unconscious, giving Brock the win as declared by the referee, while everyone looks on in stunned silence, including Alistair. The boy can't believe it. He actually lost to Brock. He didn't think that he would. The same person that he gave a free pass to back at the gym was actually able to best him, to which Brock immediately begins to celebrate. He was beginning to doubt his own abilities there for a second. However, in the end, all of his Pokemon were able to come through for him. But unfortunately for the boy, Colossal is spent, as a loud thud can be heard as the Rock type collapses to the ground, unconscious from the intensity of the battles that it just had to go through. But for Brock, this is a sign of achievement. He is ready for the next round, as he looks up to the VIP box to where Giselle is looking back down at him. He knows that eventually they're going to have to battle, but he will do everything he can to take her out. And this is where we're going to leave this part for now. So tell me, how did you feel about everything so far? What did you think about Brock's battle with Alistair? Did you find it engaging? Do you feel like Brock truly earned his win over the child prodigy of Galar? How about the warnings that Chairman Rose was receiving from Opal and Oleana and his ability and choice to neglect it? Or about this deal that he has with Giselle and what he has planned to do with Brock and his own brother? What kind of mischievous stuff are they up to? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been working. Custom art is getting kind of expensive, so we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.